Today's conversation is sponsored by First Generation Capital Partners.
If you aren't consistent, if you don't kind of create that system as I was talking about and then apply it consistently, you're shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. You're not giving it the full opportunity to succeed.
You're listening to the Going Long podcast with Billy Keels, the #1 podcast for long-distance real asset investing.
Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, I'm your host, Billy Keels. And we're back for another amazing conversation. Before we do that, I just want to say thank you very much for continuing to share your comments, tagging us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It helps to keep us in the top 1.5% of podcasts, and really, really appreciate that. And if you haven't left your honest written review, feel free to do that. We've got a nice little video for you to be able to do exactly that. And if you want to catch up any of the previous episodes, any of the more than 300 at this point, you can go to firstgencp.com/podcast and find every single episode there. firstgencp.com/podcast. So listen, I spend a lot of time in the business-to-business world. Today's guest also is spending and is currently in the business-to-business world, helping customers to understand, to gain education, and to move along their path. He's going to share a lot of the insights that he has learned and he's currently sharing. Today, he's going to do that in just a couple of minutes. He is the CMO of the Wealth Channel, Scott Hawksworth, and we're going to get to that conversation just after this. So if you want to understand how you can create your very own wealth channel to boost your long distance investing success, then guess what? Today's a conversation you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? Because today's guest not only has 15 plus years in the B2B, working for some of the largest, world's most amazing brands, and I'm sure he's going to tell us about that. He's also helped to scale a lead generation startup. That really sounds interesting. I'm sure he's going to add massive value. And today he's the CMO of the Wealth Channel, where he actually manages multiple industry brands. And I'm sure he's going to tell us all about that, because it gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. Scott Hawksworth. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, Billy. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man. It's really, I'm looking forward to it. I know we had a nice chat early on. One of the things, and I know where you are, I won't tell where you are, but you went to a university that's dear to my heart. I'll just leave it at that. Maybe you'll tell us a little bit more about that. So listen, Scott, I want to jump in. I want to give the Going Long family an opportunity to learn more about you. And I want to kind of do that with the first couple of questions. So if you're okay with it, can you help us understand where is it that you call home today?
Yeah, so I'm located in Chicago, Illinois. I actually moved here right after college. I graduated from The Ohio State University, and I had a couple options when I graduated. Could have joined a larger marketing firm, or I could have gone with the startup route. I had another offer there, and I decided to join a startup, and that was located in Chicago. And so I've been a K1 ever since.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. So from the W2 to the K1. So we like that. Appreciate that. Help us understand. One of the things I'm very passionate about is positivity. So help us understand, what's the most positive thing that's happened to or for you in the last 24 hours?
So last 24 hours, I'd say maybe it was 30, but how about this? My daughter, she had her first dance recital. So she's 3 years old. And that was the most positive thing to happen to me, because it was just so exciting to see her perform. And, I was thinking about this, so many people, we have our careers, we work to build wealth. And really, it's all about being able to then enjoy that and have those experiences, whether it's family, whether it's vacations, what have you. And just being able to enroll her in a great dance studio and see her, succeed there on stage was really, really an awesome thing.
Wow, fantastic. Well, appreciate you sharing that. And yes, those of us whose children have gone beyond 3 now, and you recognize that those moments are very, very precious. Enjoy each and every one of those. So appreciate you sharing that with us, Scott. And also to let you know a little secret, because the entire Going Long family knows this already. I am a recovering perfectionist. Basically what that means is, I try to do things sometimes that are a little bit, almost impossible. And that's like trying to tell your entire backstory. And I think it would try to do it in like half a second or a second and a half, maybe. So if you could help me out and just give us a little bit more of your own backstory, tell it in your own words. And if you could also help us with talking about some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey, and then we'll see where we take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really my backstory, in terms of my career and marketing, I've been building websites since I was in seventh grade. Way back when I started using Netscape Navigator to build that first one. We had a project, I remember, and I was the only one who put my website actually online, and it was just about cheetahs. That was the project. Pick a topic, research it, and build a web page. But I put mine online, and really in high school, I started to kind of build more websites. I was really working on websites that made money off of Google AdSense revenue. And this is really as Google was taking off and all of that was growing, and really this SEO side and being able to rank for competitive terms, and how, quite frankly, it was, you could create a system and have a lot of success just building a website that ranked well. And then again, using that AdSense revenue. And so I ended up going to Ohio State. And I knew I wanted to do business. So I studied business with a marketing specialization. And, throughout my time, I was working as a contractor, whether it was, working on websites, writing content, keeping, abreast with all of the updates and latest things in SEO. And like I said earlier, once I graduated, I had an opportunity to join a startup. And the startup was in the online education lead generation space. And online education really had this huge growth, a meteoric rise really at that time. And so again, it was a lot of the same, building these great websites that could rank really well for competitive terms. And that specific company achieved profitability within the first couple months that I joined, and then just continued to grow. And that's where I learned about all things being an entrepreneur, private equity. We had a really successful exit at one point. We had just a lot of success really rapidly. And that also kind of connected to me starting to build my own wealth and really looking at, ways I could invest and continue to sort of to grow myself, outside of just the companies I was working with. And, as everything continues to evolve on the internet, especially from a marketing perspective, I continue to evolve with, as we had Web 2.0, social media, the rise of LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of these great platforms that really also changed the game for what it meant to generate leads, what it meant to rank well for terms, and how to get traffic into funnels, how to really build an entire system where people can find, whatever your website is, your product service, and really get into a funnel and become, whether it's leads, customers, what have you. And I think that from that point, I kind of moved on after we had some success there. I then went to a payments industry startup, headed up their marketing operations there. Again, much of the same. That was more business to business, getting folks set up with merchant accounts. And again, using the same tools. That's when I started podcasting really, because we have there, with marketing, content is king. It really is. That's, if there's one takeaway you get from this, whatever you're trying to do, whether it's your personal brand, whether you're trying to grow your business, content is really, really powerful, no matter the platform. And so I started a podcast about the payments and fintech industry. We saw a lot of success with that. I think at this point, it's over 170,000 downloads all time. And then from there, I joined Wealth Channel, which is a community for high net worth investors interested in growing and protecting their wealth, and much of the same, lessons that I had throughout my career, much of the same tools, leveraging SEO, leveraging these great platforms like LinkedIn, using some paid media as well. All of that kind of flows into building a community and really reaching folks that we want to reach, and then providing value to the folks who present at our events, because we are a media and events company. That's kind of the crash course in how I got from point A to point B, and through all of that, ups and downs and lots of lessons.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of different things aside from creating your very first website and on cheetahs, and I think that's pretty amazing and being able to leverage this across different industries and ultimately being able to provide value. But one of the things that you mentioned before that I just want to kind of pick up on is you talked about the online education space.
Yeah.
And so I would love for you maybe to dive into how that, because you built on it a bit, but maybe talked about what you learned from that online education space that is actually helping others today in terms of being able to get closer to whatever their specific life goal is.
Yeah. What I learned with that is the power of systems. So if you create a system, whether you're trying to market, whether you're investing in real estate, if you have a process that is repeatable and scalable, that is, I think, the secret sauce for so many things, because that's how you can build it out. So whether you have a system of, here's how I evaluate real estate deals. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to apply this to each one going forward. And here's how we can make it better each time. What we did with online education is we realized there was so much value in having a website dedicated to, for example, nursing, and then having another website that was dedicated to, business or counseling or all these different areas of education. And we had a playbook, and we developed a playbook, and where we could turn the website around, launch it within a month. You have to go fast. I know how you were talking earlier, Billy, how you're a perfectionist and you want to kind of churn things out. So we had sort of a printing press of creating this website, doing all the best practices to get it ranking for the term that's the competitive term, and then continuing to nurture that, and then just turning the faucet on and watching the revenue come in as leads were generated for these schools that were of course willing to pay for those leads because they were such high quality. And I think that having that system and then scaling it, that was one of the biggest lessons. And so everything I've done since then is, how can I make a system? When I talked about that podcast I did for payments, how can I have a process for creating podcast episodes that are great content, having a marketing hook, and then using that to grow the brand and grow traffic and grow listenership. So yeah, it's all about systems.
Okay. So systems, being able to harness the power of systems, that those systems, as you were able to scale them. Also, when that happens, you're able to get the type of education that you need, regardless of where you may start your journey. So that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned one thing before, and I think a lot of people, right? Because I was in corporate world for a really long time, and that the W-2 is one thing, but you mentioned early on, right, that you went to the K-1, and so I know a lot. I'd love for you to speak to that person who is in a day job today. They're still considering moving into some type of alternative asset, whether that be real estate or others. But there's this bit of hesitance, because it's almost like you have to do one or the other. And it seems that you were able to combine the two. So maybe you could talk to that person who's feeling a little bit of trepidation in terms of being able to take action, but maybe sharing some of your experience there.
Yeah, for me, I learned early on, as I think I was a W-2 for a few years early in my career, and then I went right to the K-1s. And it does increase complexity. You're not going to be, maybe if you're really passionate about doing your taxes, you can try to TurboTax it, but you're going to need, an accountant. Things are going to get a little more complex. But with that comes opportunity. Because now, once you have that K-1, I know for me, I then kind of looked at myself different. I looked at myself as like, I'm the business, really. And I think there's like sort of a mindset shift that is really powerful once you get there. When you're a W-2 employee, you're kind of thinking, all right, I'm just collecting my paycheck. That's it. But once you start getting those K-1s, you're, starting your own business, whatever it is, you're investing in real estate, you almost have to start thinking, okay, now the business is me. What can I do to really leverage that? Whether you're, approaching, how do I take my expenses and what's justifiable? What can I do to leverage this, since I'm doing it all for my own business? What can I do to see, see my gains and reinvest those. One of our brands is Opportunity DB, which is all about those those capital gains taxes and the benefits there, those tax advantage strategies. Thinking that way was a lesson I kind of learned early on, because you almost have to. I would go out to the bar with my friends and they would just say, yeah, I just do my 401k match and that's it. Whereas when you have that mindset shift, there's just so many more creative things that you can do to grow your wealth. So what I would say is shift that mindset, start doing the research, start really thinking about what it means now that you're going to be getting, more than just that W-2. And then that's how you can, kind of talking about systems, start really scaling things and grow that wealth, because it's protect wealth and then grow it.
Yeah. And also too, one of the things that I just want to highlight, as you talked about those questions that you're asking, like that you were asking out loud, right? And you mentioned prior to that is that there are different professionals that will be a part of the journey with you as you transition to more things that are K1, more investment types of strategies that are K1. And these types of questions that you're asking out loud, that you just asked out loud, these are the types of questions that you're asking your professionals. And so I think that is very important that you lead with that, and also just kind of reiterate that point, and having the professionals on your team. So I want to go a little bit to your sweet spot as well. So yeah, I know you've got for those of you who are watching the video, if you're not watching the video, you should check it out because he's got some pretty cool words written behind him. I won't share that because it will hopefully bring you over to the video. But no, listen, talk to us a little bit about, you talked about some of the alternative investing space. You talked about also to Wealth Channel, specifically what you're doing, but maybe someone's just listening to us for the very first time. Talk us a little bit about your world and the marketing world that you're in, and how you are helping others as a CMO with Wealth Channel.
Yeah. So as I said, Wealth Channel is a community for high net worth investors who are looking to grow and protect their wealth. And one of our big things is, we're media and events. So we create, we have multiple podcasts that I produce. The Alternative Investment Podcast, which is hosted by Andy Higgins. We have the Opportunity Zones and Private Equity Show, which is hosted by Jimmy Atkinson. And these two podcasts are really about, education and thought leadership. And we have thought leaders from across the private equity world and the alternative investing world on these shows to share their insights and their knowledge. And so that's just pure knowledge. Like if you're looking to invest, if you're asking yourself, how do I, what are some great strategies to follow in this current economic environment? What are some tax advantage strategies that I can use to grow my wealth even faster? We cover that on our show. And then we have events, which are virtual events, which we call them investor matchmaking events. And that's where we have deal sponsors present deals that directly to our audience of high net worth investors. So, there's so many deals out there. There's so much opportunity. It can be really hard to wade through all of it. And what are the best opportunities for me? So we have these events to really get the sponsors in front of our audience and say, hey, here's my deal. Here's what the return profile looks like. Here's what our strategy is. And here's why this is a potentially great investment for you to make. And so all of that is really, it's about education. It's about, again, helping people grow their wealth. And the key piece of that, when you then kind of take a step back and you're like, well, how do you reach these people? And that's one of our biggest things. We want to reach these high net worth investors. And that's a very specific type of person. I think in marketing, you always have, there's okay, well, who's your ideal customer? How do you reach them? How do you wade through, all of the folks and reach the people that you really want to reach? And that's why we leverage platforms like LinkedIn, for example. We use that heavily to promote our content, to reach folks. And I've got some statistics for you here, if I can throw them at you, Billy.
Sure. But everybody be careful. He's going to throw out some numbers. Throw out some numbers. No, go ahead.
Through my research, 44% of LinkedIn users earn more than $75,000 a year, and 41% of millionaires use LinkedIn. So, 4 in 10 millionaires are on LinkedIn and using it. And then when you talk about the quality of the type of person that we're looking for. So that right there, you have LinkedIn. Okay, so clearly there's a lot of valuable users there. And then you look at when you're trying to convert those folks to becoming listeners, to joining our email list, to attending our events. That's really all about leads, right? According to HubSpot, LinkedIn generated the highest visitor to lead conversion rate at 2.74%, almost 3 times higher than both Twitter and Facebook. So that is a huge, huge statistic right there. And so for us, when we are looking at a specific type of person that we want to reach, that we want to educate, that's why we look at LinkedIn. And I think this can really apply to so many industries, or even just individually. There's folks out there who are saying, how do I earn more money? How do I get the next job offer? How do I find that next opportunity? Well, kind of circling back to that K1 mindset we were talking about, right, Billy? Look at yourself as a business and as a brand. And I think LinkedIn, of course, other platforms as well, but LinkedIn especially can be such a fantastic channel to build that personal brand and build yourself outside of, okay, if I'm just earning my salary. And we really think about it that way, and we apply it to our brand, Wealth Channel, but it can really apply to many brands.
Okay. So we see how you're specifically applying it. It appears, right, that you've done because you talked to us about some of the specific statistics, but it appears that you've found a channel that you predominantly like, right? And so you're talking about the specific channel, which in this case is LinkedIn. I'm also thinking about the person who is sitting back going, okay, well, yeah, this sounds really interesting, but I'm not a business to business person. I'm just looking to understand more about, what I could potentially do to gain more education around this new space. Right? Maybe I'm not a LinkedIn user today, but sure. I just want to help make sure that everyone's understanding that is it just a LinkedIn strategy, or is this something that you can gain the education no matter where you're going? If I'm taking it from the person who's driving in the car or running on the treadmill, listening to the two of us.
Right. I think it goes back to that mindset. Whatever your platform is, it doesn't have to be LinkedIn. If you're trying to market yourself or market your business, whatever you may be doing, there are so many resources out there. There's newsletters, there's countless articles have been written. I mean, we've reached this point now. I know in marketing, there's just a huge push for generative AI. ChatGPT is making all the waves. I've been educating myself just simply, doing the research, firing up Google and searching, ChatGPT tips and signing up and just kind of testing it. If you have a goal, and if your goal is, I want to grow whatever it is, my own personal audience, the audience of my business, my wealth, there's so much education out there. Whether you're looking to learn more about investing, come to Wealth Channel. Whether you're interested in learning more about LinkedIn, there's like I said, newsletters. There are so many opportunities out there. And I think your step one is think about, what is your goal? What are you trying to achieve? And how can you go out and get that information? We were talking again about K1s earlier and how you want to involve professionals and things like that. There are thought leaders everywhere. Go to Amazon, grab that first book, and leaf through it, and you'll be amazed at the kind of information that you can get and education you can get really, really quite easily.
Yeah, and I appreciate you helping us have a better understanding or an enhanced understanding that, regardless of the platform, there are opportunities for everyone to both share information as well as learn information, and being able to not only just pick up the book and getting the theoretical knowledge, lots of different groups and organizations that can help that share knowledge and be able to, share practices, things that have worked, things that maybe have not worked, and being able to help you as someone who is seeking more education, be able to move along in the path. So I do have one other question for you before we kind of before we get into the Going Long Final Three, because we kind of have to get into the Going Long Final Three. That's what everybody's waiting for. Sure. I know customer journey is a big thing, right? Yeah. You've made mention to that before. Can you help the person who's on the other side, who's actually receiving, who's going through the customer journey? Because maybe somebody has not heard of it before. Like I said, I spent 26 years in business to business, but help that person that is listening today, that's seeking more education, that's seeking more knowledge. why it's so important that someone like yourself is thinking about the customer journey or the client journey so that they're ultimately able to attain or achieve whatever goal it is that they want to be able to achieve, the one that you just talked about just a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think one of the big things in marketing, when you think about that in customer journeys, there is so much noise out there, and it is hard to both hold people's attention and get to know people. There's people constantly, like, open up your email inbox. You're getting emails constantly from folks all over the world. You open up, LinkedIn, you've got just a feed, you've got Twitter, you've got all these things just constantly, a barrage. So the customer journey is really about how do you go from that awareness of first learning about a brand or a service or, a piece of knowledge, a piece of education, and take them from that to getting to know you and then being a part of whatever it is and ultimately making that purchase, choice or joining the community. For us, that's big for us. And so we think about it from, who's our avatar? Who are we trying to reach? And what is their first touch point? Whether it's social media, whether it's a Google search, whether it's an email forwarded to them from a friend, whether it's YouTube, whether it's the podcast. Once they find us, then how can we convert them into joining our community? How do we get them to sign up for our email list? How do we get them to then open those emails? And then ultimately, what we really want to do is help them. So we want them to attend our events. So we want them to open those emails and then register for our events and then sign on Zoom and, listen to that presentation from a sponsor. And that journey has to, one, be very, very efficient. It has to cut through that noise. It has to be a painless journey. If at any point they don't get the email or the registration link doesn't work, or there's some piece of content that was like, oh, that was a huge typo, something that could damage that journey. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. And so that it's seamless. And so I think whatever you're doing, when you think about journeys, it's how do I not only map them from, okay, they don't know me to they know me and they're a super fan, or they're making a purchase. And how does that process look? And how is it efficient? And at every point along the way, you're just improving the relationship there.
All right, fantastic. So it sounds like beginning with the end in mind, and also being able to help the individual who is looking to gain more education be able to take the steps that are most appropriate in the time that's most appropriate, so that they move closer and closer to their goal, regardless of where they start. So appreciate you keeping that clear for us, Scott, and really helping to map it out. But the thing is we kind of have to get into the going long final three because it's that time. And because you're our special guest today, I never ask anyone the going long final three, unless they tell me. And today it's let you tell me that you're ready to go. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I knew you were going to say that. This guy, you went to the Ohio State and everything. So, so here we go. So we started with you over in Chicago. I'd like to, although I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, I'm now called home here in Europe for the last 20 plus years. And so I would love for you to share with us, Scott, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
So it's got to be Rome, and it's on my bucket list. I have not been. My wife went when she graduated college. She did a trip for a couple of weeks, and I just love the history, the art. I studied Latin for 4 years in high school. So I would really love to go to Rome. That's on my bucket list.
All right, fantastic. So Rome it is. And question number 2 really has to do a lot with learning. So, everybody tries things, right? And the more and more successful that you become, you try things, and along the way, you probably have had a mistake or you've had a learning opportunity or something like that. I don't really want you to think about the mistake that was made or the learning opportunity. I really want you to think about the lesson that you learned. And so I would love for you to share, what is the one lesson that you learned as a result of taking action that you would like to share with the Going Long family, in hopes that someone out there listening today doesn't have to pay 100% of what you paid before. They're going to get it at a discount.
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson, whether you're talking about investing, whether you're talking about business, that I've learned is the value of consistency. Because there's so many ideas you might have. You may be passionate about something at one point, and then you start going, and then you get a little inconsistent with what you're trying to do. And the next thing you know, it falls off. And I've found, and I learned, the hard way, that if you aren't consistent, if you don't kind of create that system, as I was talking about, and then apply it consistently, you're shooting yourself in the foot, so to speak. You're not giving it the full opportunity to succeed. And so if you get at the end point and maybe it didn't work out, or whatever it was, you didn't kind of reach the goal that you'd set, if you weren't consistent, then that's kind of, you really didn't get that full information. Whereas if you were consistent, you did it over a long period of time, each time you improved all of that, and it still doesn't work out, then you can sleep soundly knowing, okay, that idea, that strategy wasn't ultimately a fit. And there was nothing that I could have done differently because it didn't work. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've had. And again, it really applies to everything. Consistency is really a path to success.
All right. Consistency as that path to success. Sounds great. And then question number 3, this is the last of the Going Long final 3. I always like to fill our heads with additional knowledge in the way of a book. And you mentioned earlier, I would love for you to share with us, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
Yeah, I love this book. I read it early on in my career, and it really changed my whole perspective. It's The Millionaire Next Door, The Surprising Secrets of America's Wealthy. That's by Thomas J. Stanley. And it's just a fantastic book when you're looking at building wealth. And it really kind of breaks down these misconceptions. I think we all have this idea of millionaires like, oh, they look a certain way. They must have this. And it was just fantastic. These stories of, yep, here's how a plumber is a millionaire. Not that flashy millionaire that you kind of have in your head. And here's actionable strategies and ways to think about, both your income, your savings, what goes out, what comes in. And it was really, really influential for me. So that's the book I would pick.
All right, fantastic. So we'll include that in the show notes. So don't worry if you're running, if you're cooking, the Millionaire Next Door, we will include it. And I just, I always think about these things, and you're talking about your 3-year-old daughter in the very beginning of the conversation, and you being able to enjoy her recital and sharing that with something that was positive in your life. And then, attending the Ohio State University. And then from there, realized that you understood and you really liked the world of marketing. You got involved early on in online businesses, being able to do everything from education to payments, and then now even into the alternative investing space, and specifically leading with all of the previous knowledge that you had, the best way to create a positive, forward-moving client journey or customer journey, and the things that you're doing with the Wealth Channel. So, I know that mostly every single person that's listening or watching us is like, yeah, Billy, just ask him the question. So I'm going to ask you the question. Help us understand, Scott, what's the best way for the Going Long family to find out more about you, what you've got going on at Wealth Channel, and be able to, attend some of the stuff you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, Scott Hawksworth on LinkedIn, love to connect. So feel free to go to LinkedIn and connect with me there. You can also check me out, scotthawksworth.com. And then for Wealth Channel, wealthchannel.com. And as well as YouTube, you can find us on YouTube. It's at wealthchannel.com. That's a great way to kind of check out our shows there.
All right. Fantastic. Well, listen, Scott, I want to say on behalf of the entire Going Long family, thank you very much for deciding to invest your time with us. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Billy.
All right. Hey, if you give me just like 10 seconds, I'm going to wrap things up and just say goodbye to the Going Long family. And listen, Scott just shared his knowledge. He helped you understand everything from the client journey, understanding the focus around education and doing that online and starting where it makes the most sense for you, and being able to increase your education base, being able to also connect with others that are on a similar journey as yourself. So take today's conversation, share it with 2 or 3 other people. And while you're doing that, I'll be here preparing for the next conversation. So until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.